So you're about to hear an interview that I did with Maggie Bahou, who's a chief people officer. And she's going to talk about what a chief people officer does, as well as her career journey in the human resources field. And my original intent was to have Maggie explain the field of HR. So for people who are interested in exploring that as a career option. But what came out of the interview was something I didn't know about Maggie, which was she did a pretty significant career change early on in her career. And so we also dive in some of her recommendations for doing a career change. And also, as a seasoned HR professional, some of her recommendations for people involved in career changes and just people who want to get hired. So, how to upgrade your job search. So, I think you'll find it really information packed and useful. So, here's Maggie Bahou. All right. So looking forward to hearing your story. So thanks so much for being willing to do this.
Of course, glad to.
Yeah. So how about if we start off with if you could describe what your current role is and what you do, and then we'll talk about your career journey.
Absolutely. So my current role is that I am serving as the Chief People Officer for a healthcare company. We are in the business of home visits, so we do advanced primary care in the home. My role is really anything having to do with our people, our colleagues, as we call our employees. So it's the sort of traditional HR items, with investigations and HR business partnering and colleague relations, as well as learning and development, actually, as part of my team and our organization, including clinical education. And we also have on my team, I manage talent acquisition and talent development, as well as something that we call credentialing, which is in healthcare, we ensure that our medical professionals, our clinicians are properly licensed and enrolled in the proper plans and health plans so that they can work on the correct panels. And then I also have, comp and ben as other traditional areas that are under my purview in my role now.
Awesome. And what part of your work do you like the best?
Oh gosh. I really enjoy so much of what I do. I truly enjoy the business partnering. So, the HR business partnering. For me, that's more of serving as an advisor to my peers in the C-suite on whatever basis that might be, right? It may be about the business. It may be about culture. We're trying to shift or change culture in some way. And so we need to dialogue about what that might look like. So I truly enjoy serving in that advisory role with my peers at that level as we are directing, the ship of the organization. And it's pretty exciting to know that and to be having conversations about what are the things that we can do and say that will impact our entire enterprise.
Fantastic. Can you give some examples? So let's say somebody's thinking about a career in HR and they want to work at more the strategic level that you work at. So as a business partner, like what would be, I don't know, 2 to 4 um, scenarios or issues that you'd be called in on to be an advisor?
A couple of issues would be I would say probably the two big ones that we talk about a lot in HR: retention and engagement. And one example for on the engagement front is we were actually just talking about engagement last week, and it seems like a new term may be emerging that inspiration is the new engagement. So we'll see if that actually turns out to be the case. But engagement is one of those really, as well as retention, really complex in an organization, and it's not just owned by HR or by the people leader. It's owned throughout the organization, and it should be led by the HR professional. So if someone wants to be in human resources, and want to operate at a higher level, then understanding what goes into what drives engagement. How do you move an organization from missing engagement to a high level of engagement? And how do you get there? Because those things are not fast. They're quite slow. And as I said, it's complex, it's integrated. And there's also, anytime you're working with people and human beings, there's a little bit of influencing. You can't just turn them on and say, go do this, right? They have to understand, well, for what reason am I doing this? And for what reason do I need to change my behavior? So engagement is one chief area. And then for retention, I'll address that a little bit in that similarly, retention has to do with all the goings on inside of an organization. It's not just what compensation does it take to get people to stay in an org? Yeah, of course it's comp, but it's also, do they have a sense of belonging? Do they see career advancement? Do they, some say, do you have a best friend at work? Whatever it is for that person that ties them to their workplace. And those of us in the business also call that organizational commitment. How do you keep that person connected to your organization in a way that's meaningful to them? So again, because of the complex nature of that conversation, it's not a one and done. You don't just pull one lever and, oh, retention done. Right. We wish it were. It's just not that easy. So understanding those complexities and being able to come to a conversation around how we might influence that would be a really important factor.
Yeah, I love it when you talked about the one and done. It reminds me of before engagement was a thing, people talked about morale, and I would get requests for like, morale is a real problem in an organization. Can you do a half-day program? It's like, I can, but that's not going to solve your problem.
Right. Right. That's just opening the window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got kind of a big picture with also some details of what your current role is. Can you kind of walk us through your career journey? Yeah, like what made you go into HR and then how you advanced along the way?
Yeah, of course. So I literally fell into HR by accident. And thankfully it's been wonderful. So I started my career. So post college, I went into IT. I was a programmer, a developer. Yep. Did that straight out of college. That's what my education was in. And so I did that for a while for a large consulting firm. And after, the amount of travel and the amount of work that I was doing, I quickly discovered that line of work was not a great fit for me. And it wasn't filling my bucket, if you will. And so I made some decisions, made some calls, started using my network, and found a temporary role filling in for someone who was going out on maternity leave in the HR department for a healthcare company. And she basically handled their training and development, and they just needed someone to really keep the wheels on while she was out on leave. And I was like, great, no problem. I'm sure I can handle it, right? Give me a little bit of training. I'll figure it out. And I reported to the director of HR at the time and got in the role. And then it turns out the employee that I was filling in for decided not to come back from leave. And when she made that decision, then the director of HR came to me and said, hey, we want you to stay. And here's what that might look like. And so I was taught on the job about what HR is by the director. And then I also had a dotted line to an assistant VP of labor relations, also at this company. And we basically built everything that this company needed related to HR. We had an in-house recording studio, so I was able to record training videos on sexual harassment and discrimination and all of those things. And was able to work on recruiting and employee development, and just really understood from that role what HR actually meant to an organization. And I've been in HR ever since. And that's been 25 years ago. So I've gone from in and out of healthcare. So I'm back in healthcare now. My last two positions have been in healthcare, and I truly see that as where I need to be spending my time and effort. I've also had a wonderful opportunity to own and run a couple of businesses that were not healthcare related, but more product development and product sales online. And also had an opportunity to work for 2 state governments, which is where I had the pleasure of working with you in New Hampshire. And then also had an opportunity later to work in Tennessee for state government. In HR, my role was human resources. So I've really had a lovely experience, public sector, private sector, and self-employed.
That is wild. I want to hear more about the product sales businesses. That sounds super cool. Before we get to that, can you talk about what practices and qualities helped you be successful in doing that pivot and really like learning on the job, growing incredibly on the job? Yeah, can you talk about that?
Sure. In my experience, it took the ability to be nimble, to be flexible, and to have a level of confidence in my own abilities. And there's also a bit of vulnerability that goes in with that, because, I would sit in conversations with HR practitioners, my leader, and he would say things. I was like, I don't have any idea what a market comp analysis looks like, but I'll learn. So, just having to say, that's new to me. I don't know how to do that. Can you show me? Or let me go do some research and I'll come back to you. And then you can give me feedback on if I'm aligned with what you're asking for. And it took my knowing that, look, I can do this. I have a level of confidence in myself. I know, I'm smart enough. I'm quick enough, right? There are things that I can figure out like anybody can. And so just bringing that to the table was really helpful. And, once these leaders were able to see the quality of my work, skills and other sort of tasks and things can be taught. If you have the right work ethic and you have the right quality or level of excellence in your work product, the how-to can be taught, or the what to do can be taught, as long as the how-to is understood of, I'll get this done. I'll get it done by the deadline, and I'll do it with excellence.
I love it. And I love the sort of can-do attitude. So when your friend went out on maternity leave, it's like, yeah, I can fill in and I can figure it
Sure.
out.
Right. Yes, I was really fortunate. I mean, it's like, I don't know how to do what you do, but you show it to me and then I'll do it, and I'll do it well. So
That's great. And as you could tell by the expression on my face, I never knew your original profession, in IT.
yeah.
And what a great example. Like, one of the things I see oftentimes with people fresh out of college or a few years out is they're feeling like there's something wrong with them, that they don't have this long range plan of the perfect, career trajectory. And it's like, no, so much of it is like serendipity or stumbling upon something and discovering like, hey, this is a great fit.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I use a lot of what I learned in school and from my first career. Like I've put in HRIS systems, and I can do that in a different way as the chief people leader because I was trained as an IT professional.
That's a great point.
Mhm.
That it's not like you're starting over. It's like you've got this whole other body of knowledge that can add value. And then for people who are job searching, differentiate you from others.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say for those that are job searching, it's really incumbent on you to point out where you can make those connections in a job posting, for example, or a job advertisement. You need to point that out to the hiring manager. They might not see it, but if you're lucky enough to get an interview, point it out. And if not, do it in the cover letter. Right. Let me explain to you how I think that I can make the connections in what you're looking for, even though my experience or my title isn't exactly what you're looking for. I still have connection points, and I still have the competencies, for example, that I do now carry over nicely to this position in this way.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that? So a couple of things come to mind. So one is what you just described is like a great example of what I try to emphasize with clients is connect the dots for the interviewer. It's like, it's not up to them to connect what they're looking for with your background, especially if it's a kind of a non-traditional one. Can you say other thoughts about for career, let's say for career changers, about how to show like I can do this even though I don't have this exact, experience?
Right. So hiring managers are looking for the easy button. They want to win. So they want whoever they're hiring to be the right fit. So make it easy for them. So a couple of things I would suggest, and I've seen several people do this, is when you're creating your resume, oftentimes not using a chronological one, or if you use the chronological one, move it to the bottom, and at the top of the resume, put those competencies or skills that are transferable from past experience to this particular position that you're interested in, and put it at the top of the resume so that that hiring person can see it and all the keywords line up, right? So for SEO, right, you need to make sure that the keywords are present and showing up and are searchable. And then if given the opportunity to write a cover letter, then just literally draw the connection. You say in your job posting indicates skill set A. Here's how I've done that. And then the best is show some evidence of that. So a work product, a PowerPoint slide deck, an Excel spreadsheet, something that you've built that speaks to that particular duty that or competency that they're looking for. Of course, redacted if it's got other information on it, right? You don't want to share anything from a previous employer. But if you've created it, if it's your work product and you can use that to demonstrate your level of skill, that is the best way to help a hiring manager see what you can do.
I love that. It reminds me of this marketing principle where this guy said demonstration beats presentation every time.
Yes.
So you had like, here's a demonstration of what I can do versus like, I can really do this, Now
Yes.
I'm curious about, so your first point about having like what's called, as it's called a functional resume. Um, so having those competencies kind of pulled out from the like diverse work experiences. Typically, I hear that's frowned upon, but it sounds like for you, at least in your team and in your experience, that isn't seen as like shady or questionable. It's like, no.
No. And it becomes evident to the resume reviewer if you look down through there and the titles don't necessarily match up. But an experienced recruiter or sourcer is going to know that. And they say, okay, well, the job titles don't line up, but let me see what their experience has actually yielded. And so then they can look at the functional, right? The competencies, the skills, and the other things that they've done. And also if they have additional training, like call that out. Or if you have a license if you're a project manager, make sure that is highlighted on your resume or in your application, because that might put you ahead of another candidate. For example, maybe they have health experience and you don't, but you have a project manager certification and they don't, so those items really can be differentiators. And, I think that it is also, it's a buyer's market, right? It's a candidate's market right now. So candidates have the opportunity to be a bit more selective. So put your best foot forward, of course. But I'll tell you, employers are looking hard at applications to make sure that we're getting the right people in the door, and we're expanding our, we're really casting a wide net, because where we have looked in the past and our candidate pool is too small, we're widening that net. And so, yeah, we're looking at people who might have a different title now than what we're actually looking for. So it's our job then, we go and look to try to find those competencies that might show up a little bit different for someone who's, as I say, hasn't had that exact experience, but something similar.
All right. Let's go back to your profession. What would you say? So if somebody's considering, like, would HR be a good fit? What skills would you say have been most important for your success?
So I equate, in my technology brain, I equate HR as the user interface. So a person in HR has to have the ability to handle and communicate with anybody, anything, a vendor, an employee, an exec, and be able to very quickly assess what the challenges might be, or what's happening in this situation. So that ability is key for an HR person. And then I would say the next thing is, if someone's considering HR, is, what do you care about? Like, ultimately, what's important to you in work? For many HR professionals, this is not a requirement, but for many of us, we have a sense of justice, or this sense of advocacy. Not like crazy out there, but enough that we believe that that I have the ability to influence in a way that creates fairness or justice in the workplace. Not that the workplace is unjust. I don't mean to imply that. However, there are times where that level of advocacy is really important. And to be very clear, I'm an advocate for my organization. At the same time, I advocate for our colleagues. And so pairing those two things together and being able to marry those is a key ability in a successful HR practitioner.
Yeah. Do you want to say, so this is sort of a two-part question. So one is, can you talk about how you navigate, how you have navigated that sort of fine line or balancing act between advocating for the organization, advocating for colleagues, and then sort of related to that, in the HR field, the age-old, I want a seat at the table, issue, and how, like, remembering you when we worked together, you were fairly early in your career, I think, and you already had the respect of senior leadership at early on in your career. What do you think is the difference between HR people who do have that respect and credibility and those that sort of get pushed aside as just, do administrative stuff, but not real partners?
Mm-hmm. Stop being an order taker. I mean, truly. HR gets in the habit, or has gotten in the habit of, just tell me what you need to do and I'll make it happen. And HR people are get it done people generally. However, the business needs more than that. Business leaders need your advice. They need your ability to say, look, if you make this decision, these are the things that will probably occur with our employee population. let's consider these. And not only that, so HR persons also get in the habit of sort of being, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And here's why. Instead, let's move away from, no, we can't do that, to here are the things that might occur. And let me make a recommendation. This is the recommendation of how we might move forward. And I'll tell you, our other leaders, our execs, our chief operating officers, and others are looking for help with that. They know how to run a business, but they need our help in understanding our workforce. And that is what they seek from an HR contributor who really gets the pulse of what's going on with the people in the company or the organization. And so it's really to stop asking for a seat at the table and just earn it. Just earn it. Be it act like that, be confident, know that you can provide insight and that you can contribute as much as others, and then go do it.
I love it. I love it. And boy, that's great advice for anybody, you know, to show that kind of initiative and thinking like a business owner, that
Right.
you're like you're like the leadership in the organization, they're your client, and you want to provide the most value possible to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm paid for, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not only asked to do that, I'm expected to do that. My company needs me to be that voice. And so I'm falling down on my role, on my job, if I'm not contributing those things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what
And
about,
also,
sorry,
one more thing I'll just add, David, I think is really important. I'd like to see more chief people officers become CEOs. And it doesn't happen with as much frequency as I think it could. So more to come on that. I don't know that those are my aspirations at the moment, but listen, I mean, why not, right? I mean, why shouldn't the chief people officers or CHROs become the CEOs?
I love it. And actually, speaking of that, so what have been the businesses that you've owned? Like what if that, you mentioned product sales?
Oh yeah. So several years ago, I co-founded a company with 5 other business partners, and we created a seasonal craft box for kids. And it was basically our mantra was nothing could have batteries. So everything had to run on its own without electronics. We produced this quarterly or seasonal product that was ordered online. So parents could, or caregivers, whatnot, could order this really cool craft box that would arrive every quarter for their child or children to have something, maybe for a long road trip or something like that. So we had a lot of fun doing it. We were in business for a few years, broke even, and said, okay, we've done that. Now we're going to move on and do other things.
That's cool. And I imagine that gave you added, knowledge, insight into the financial side of running a business that helps you in your main gig.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And we even looked at trademarking some of our work. We ended up not doing that for a couple of different reasons, but yes, absolutely. We had a more general business view, or I certainly learned more about a general business view than just the HR perspective.
Neat. And what would you say as you think about your career? I'm sure you do a lot of mentoring. What advice do you give, especially younger people, around networking, growing, growing their connections, developing the value they could provide potential employers?
Networking is a good thing. Using your network to find roles is a good thing. I've had some people tell me, oh, I feel guilty reaching out to people and asking for their help. No, that's why you have a network. You reach out and you say, hey, I see a job opportunity over here. Do you think that might be a good fit for me? And if so, can you help me get my foot in the door? I mean, that's exactly what networking is all about. So yes, use your network. And as far as, that relationship or the relationships that you develop, those are give and take. So there'll be times where you need to be giving, so you need to be putting into that relationship. And then there are times where you'll be taking and asking for help. And that is okay. That is the nature of networking. And I would suggest too for people to not go to every single network event that they can find, right? That's too much. And you just get spread too thin. But pick a few, 2 to 5, I would say 5 at the absolute most. So I have 2 right now that I'm very regular in. And those are both great contacts for me. If I have a question, I'm like, wow, I wonder how this organization handles this. And, it just gives you an instant circle to reach out if you have questions or just want to bounce an idea off a fellow professional. I'll also add that I have 2 additional, so I guess I'd say I have 4 networking groups, 2 that are only online, which are really wonderful. So we do a monthly roundtable and topic du jour, and it's only execs in HR, which is fabulous. And then I have another one that is just strictly a board. So you can check posts at any given time. You can post something and ask questions. And so, use those resources as well. And I recommend, of course, things in HR, but don't limit yourself to HR. And I think that's also where HR trips itself up a bit. You have to be deep in HR knowledge and you need to understand the business. So find an industry group like a healthcare group or a manufacturing group or whatnot, even if it's not HR people, and get some participation in there just to get familiar with the industry. And you may end up with operations or folks in IT that become your sort of networking group. And those are fantastic friends to have.
Yeah. And the checking out different like groups outside of your particular domain, it kind of makes me think also of the value of, let's say for you, your IT background or anybody changing careers is, so many of the best ideas come from outside one's discipline or one's industry. So not being so tunnel vision with just networking with people in your industry.
Absolutely. Yes. And in fact, when I hire HR people, I really like HR people who've had other experiences, who maybe haven't been in HR their whole lives, or if they have been in HR, they've worked in different industries.
Great. Anything else as you look at your career, recommendations to people, either things that you would have done differently, or things that you're really thankful that you did? So like taking that opportunity when your friend went on leave, like just going for it is a great example. Other examples of, I'm so glad I did this, or whether it's a one-time or an ongoing, or I would do X differently.
Gosh, that's tough. That's a tough question. I would say I am really thankful so I did take a couple of years off to have children. And during that time, I actually got my master's degree. And that was very helpful because, if you look at a chronological resume, and employers ask, well, what were you doing for these years? Well, I was taking care of my family. Oh, and by the way, I got a master's degree. Oh, okay. Right. So gives them something to say, okay, you're still really keeping your hands in work and business, right? Even though you were it looked a little different. So I'm very thankful that I had the time and the means to get my master's degree. During a little bit of a break. That's also when we started that business. So I actually had a couple of things going on. I'm not sure why I call it a break. Anyway, so I would say that's great. And really all of my career changes, I mean, I'm so thankful they've all worked out. I've enjoyed and learned from every experience. And I'm also like, I make the best out of wherever I'm placed, so I can't think of any maybe steps where I wish I had done it differently. I might say I wish I had made some changes sooner rather than waiting a little bit. So, but I wouldn't change maybe the way I handled it, maybe just doing things a little sooner and not waiting so long.
And what would you say kept you from moving on it sooner? Was it just fear of the unknown or just inertia or think it might
Um,
get better?
Probably a little bit of uncertainty of the unknown and also just responsibilities in life and, just trying to really set myself up for success. You don't make big jumps without some kind of backup plan. And so that's also part of the timing issue, I think, is I felt like I needed to get a few more things in line in case the jumps that I was making didn't work out or didn't pan out in the way that I had planned.
Oh, interesting. And are you okay with saying like what you had is like a backup plan or infrastructure to make it a wise move versus like leap off the cliff and hope it works?
Yeah, well, anytime you change jobs, to me, there's always this weird period of uncertainty. So before your health insurance kicks in, before you get your first paycheck, right? And sort of going, and I'm very commerce driven. So I know this about myself and my personality test. So comp matters to me. And it's also a safety and security thing for me. And so I needed to make sure that from paycheck to next paycheck, things were in place, right? And savings were in place should the position not go according to plan. Because no, I don't want to be dependent on someone else's decision. That I want to be set up to be in the, to make decisions from a place of comfort in what I've got, in my security in what I've got, that I don't have to worry that somebody else might make a decision that would impact my well-being. So that's one thing. And that's me. I just prefer to have that safety net.
All right. So as we start to wind down, anything that I haven't asked you that is you thinking about, whether it's somebody thinking about the field of human resources or somebody exploring a career change, any closing thoughts?
The first I would say is, since we're sort of talking about comp a little bit, is ask for what you're worth. I see this a lot in HR, and I also see this in females, that we tend to not ask for what we want and just expect that someone will recognize and just grant whatever it is that we are thinking we should get or should earn or be worth. And I'm not saying that you ask for the moon. I'm saying, be deliberate in your approach and your research so that you know what to ask for and that you're within range, if you will. Be confident about asking for those things. As I said earlier, you got to prove yourself. You got to demonstrate your worth, that of course. But certainly I've learned over the years that you do have to ask. The answer is always no if you don't ask, right? But if you ask, you at least have a 50-50 chance. Hopefully it'll be yes.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. You covered a lot of great stuff in a short amount of time.
Well, thank you. It's always great to engage with you. And I don't like to talk about myself, but I appreciate the way that you ask the questions, that they're very story driven and they feel a little bit less personal and a little bit more about, well, these are the things that happen. So I
Oh,
like
great.
your
Oh,
approach.
thanks. I appreciate that. So again, thanks so much. And I'll let you know when I have this posted.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.